Our subcommittee meets today to address the continuing efforts of Democratic jurisdictions to nullify federal immigration laws and obstruct law enforcement officials in their vital efforts to uphold these laws. They self-righteously call themselves sanctuary cities, but the sanctuary they offer is to violent criminals who prey upon not only our own citizens, but on immigrant communities themselves. During the last 4 years, the Democrats deliberately trafficked into our country more than 8 million unvetted and illegal migrants, including some of the most dangerous, vicious, and violent criminals and cartels in the world. They did nothing when local law enforcement agencies from across this country warned this committee that foreign criminal cartels and gangs were establishing themselves throughout the country. The Sinaloa cartel, Tren de Aragua, MS-13 prominent among them. When the grieving families of the victims of their policies were introduced on the House floor, the Democrats sat in stony, contemptuous silence. When those same families warned this committee about the devastating effect of these sanctuary policies, the Democrats offered platitudes and then implied they were exaggerating the threat. When local and federal law enforcement officials warned that these policies were endangering law enforcement officers and the communities themselves, the Democrats ridiculed them. Well, the American people finally had enough of the Democrats' gaslighting and callous disregard for public safety. For years, the Democrats had told us they were powerless to stop this mass illegal migration without allowing at least 4,000 illegal migrants a day into the country and offering amnesty to those already here. Yet on Inauguration Day, President Trump put the lie to all of that. President Trump ordered our laws to actually be enforced. Within weeks, illegal crossings at the southern border plunged 96%. Migrant caravans en route to this country broke up in Mexico and dispersed. Migrants crossing the perilous Darien Gap dropped 99%. By February, monthly illegal border crossings plunged from $37,000 in February of 24 to 408 this past February. ICE has now arrested more than 100,000 illegal migrants, most of them with criminal records. With the Border Patrol refocused, gotaways have fallen from 95% from an average of 1,800 a day to 77. Now, the work before us is enormous. The largest illegal mass migration in recorded history must now be followed by the largest mass repatriation in history, and congressional Republicans stand squarely behind the president. There are still an estimated 600,000 on the non-detained docket that were set loose in our country. Right behind them are 1.4 million illegal migrants who have already received a final court order of deportation that they will simply ignore. Now, instead of recognizing and respecting the wish and will of the American people to see their communities made safe again and their borders made secure again, the Democrats continue to obstruct the enforcement of our immigration laws. For the first time since antebellum days, the Democrats have returned to their doctrine of nullification, that recalcitrant jurisdictions can simply defy and nullify federal law. Take Adams County, Washington, for example. When a rural county sheriff's office had the audacity to cooperate with federal officials to remove dangerous illegals from their streets, the state's woke Democratic Attorney General sued them. In Chicago, when lifelong residents begged their city government to protect them, Mayor Brandon Johnson did everything he could to silence them. In the Denver suburbs, when struggling families appealed to city officials for help, as armed Venezuelan gangs took over their apartment complex, the Democrats called them liars. And before this committee, as mothers recounted the senseless, brutal, and entirely preventable rapes and murders of their daughters at the hands of illegal aliens that the Democrats had deliberately released into their communities, our Democratic colleagues put on their best long faces, offered platitudes, and then advocated for the same policies that created this humanitarian disaster. And they still don't get it. Across the country, Democratic sanctuary jurisdictions are doubling down on these horrific policies. In February, in my home state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom approved $50 million in state funds to be used for, quote, legal defenses against the Trump administration, half of which is for nonprofits to provide legal aid to aliens in removal proceedings. Jurisdictions like San Diego and Los Angeles have hardened their sanctuary policies to further thwart the enforcement of our immigration laws. San Francisco leads a lawsuit against the Trump administration to try to prevent the administration from withholding federal funds from sanctuary jurisdictions that are in open defiance of federal law. In December, the Boston City Council unanimously voted in favor of keeping the city's sanctuary status. Last month, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson defended the city's sanctuary status at a congressional hearing, repeating discredited and utterly absurd claims that returning criminals into our communities actually make those communities safer. Just today, it's reported that an illegal migrant from El Salvador, charged with previously sexually assaulting a 16-year-old boy in Palmdale, has now been arrested for the murder of a 13-year-old boy in Lancaster, California. These democratic sanctuary policies not only require the release of dangerous criminals back into our communities in defiance of federal law, they place law enforcement at much greater risk, as officers must now confront these criminals not when they're in custody and unarmed, but rather when they are at large and often armed. The Trump administration is doing everything it can to confront these dangerous policies. In one of his first executive orders, President Trump directed law enforcement to evaluate and undertake any lawful actions to ensure that so-called sanctuary jurisdictions which seek to interfere with the lawful exercise of federal law enforcement operations do not receive access to federal funds. In February, President Trump signed an additional executive order to ensure that federal funds to states and localities will not be used to support sanctuary policies or assist illegal immigration. And the administration has sued multiple jurisdictions, including Illinois and New York, for their efforts impeding federal law enforcement. But without new laws, the next Democratic president will undoubtedly reverse these policies and once again open our borders to the worst criminal elements on the planet and then shield them under Democratic sanctuary policies. We cannot let that happen. Congress must enact stronger laws that will prevent a future Joe Biden from ever again placing our families at risk, and that will stop today's Democratic politicians from impeding the enforcement of our immigration and public safety laws. Today, we will hear from several law enforcement and local officials on their perspectives and suggestions as we pursue this work, and I want to welcome them all here today.